We normally assume that markets are going to be efficient, where we're going to reach our market equilibrium, so that single intersection point between supply and demand. But markets aren't always going to be efficient. And when markets aren't efficient, when prices go above equilibrium, where there's a surplus of goods, or when prices go below equilibrium, where there's a shortage of goods, this is what we consider to be a market failure. So market failure is a failure to provide the socially optimal amount of goods and services. We are being inefficient. We're essentially being allocatively efficient because we're not bringing out exactly what the market desires. And there are four sources of market failures that we can talk about, four specific ones. Markets can fail due to four main reasons: lack of competition, asymmetric information, external benefits or costs, and the existence of public goods. So the goal of this particular lecture is to go ahead and give you a better idea of what these market failures are and a few examples of each. So first of all, markets can fail due to a lack of competition. So we normally assume that markets are going to be very, very competitive. Being in a very competitive market provides a great deal for consumers. We get really great deals, and competition forces firms to be efficient or get driven out. However, there can be instances where there's a lack of competition. And you see this a little bit more in your microeconomics classes, where you see different types of market structures. So what happens in things like a monopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition? These are market structures where there's not enough competition. And when a market lacks competition, a firm can go ahead and raise prices without worrying that other firms are going to undercut its price. So with a lack of competition, prices are going to remain high, and if prices remain high, they typically are going to be seen above equilibrium. This is going to reduce the amount of goods that are actually going to be demanded within this particular marketplace. So quantity demanded is going to be lower than what is seen in equilibrium. So therefore, we do consider this to be a market failure because we're never going to reach our socially optimum point with a lack of competition. And this is exactly where governments may want to go ahead and introduce some type of policy or intervene in some of these markets or regulate them. But this is what we see with market failure number one, with a lack of competition. Number two is going to be asymmetric information. It basically just says that one party has more information than another party. And in economics and in vast areas of life, information is seen as power. So the more information that you have, the more power you actually do have in your control. An example of this is going to go ahead and say, suppose that you want to go ahead and buy and sell a car. So you are going to buy a car and someone else is going to sell you that car. So you go on Craigslist or another site and you want to go ahead and buy a car. Who has more information in this instance? You or the seller of the car? And in this instance, the seller of the car has a lot more information and they're going to have a lot more power. So the seller of the car, they know exactly how the car handles, whether or not it's been an accident, whether or not it's a lemon, what type of work it's been has been done on it. So here, that seller has a lot more information about the condition of the car, and you yourself as the buyer may not be privy to that information. So you're dealing with asymmetric information here. The seller of the car has more information than you. And if one party has more information, they can use that to their advantage and they can raise prices above what is seen in equilibrium. And this can actually prevent some transactions from taking place, and this would be seen as a market failure. And you typically do see a lot of this asymmetric information in the buying and selling of a lot of products. You see it in the show Pawn Stars. So if you don't know what happens in Pawn Stars, it's basically a reality show where people go into the pawn shop and they go to the owner, Rick, who says, and they want to go sell an item. And they say, hey, I think I have this really, really valuable item. I want to sell it for a lot of money. But Rick says, I really don't know about that. I have to go ahead and call one of these experts, in quotes, and to see what the true value of the item is. The expert comes in and says, hey, this item is pretty much worthless. You don't want to pay a lot for this. And this will get rid of the mismatch of information, gets rid of this asymmetric information, so a fair deal can actually go ahead and take place. The third market failure we can combine into two different areas, which are externalities. So external benefits and external costs. And the idea behind these externalities is that when you purchase an item or when you do an action, it's going to harm or benefit a third party who is not privy to your transaction. Basically, they are innocent bystanders, and when you do something, they're either going to be benefited or harmed by that. So here, let's go ahead and introduce these externalities just a little bit more in depth. So here we take a look at these externalities. Externalities. And these externalities can come in different forms. They can come in a positive form or in a negative form. So positive and negative. So external benefits and external costs. And we are never going to reach our socially optimum point when externalities are present because we really don't take into account the impacts it's going to have on the third parties or on the innocent bystanders. So let's go ahead and take a look at these positive externalities first. What do you think would be a few examples of positive externalities? What is something that you can do right now that will give a third party benefit to everybody in your house or everybody just around you? The typical example that is brought up is a flu shot. Or a vaccine. So when you get a flu shot out of your own volition, no one is forcing you to get this flu shot, or you get the vaccine, you do it out of your own free will, how does everyone else benefit from that? Everyone has a lower probability of getting sick or getting a disease. So you are benefiting everybody else, third parties, by going ahead and doing this particular action. So here, this is exactly what these positive benefits are going to be accruing to the third parties. So other examples include you deciding to recycling. So by you recycling, sort of making sure that you want to save the environment, everybody is going to be benefiting from a cleaner environment. So everybody lives a little bit longer. And we can also say that maybe you want to wear some deodorant. So what happens when you wear deodorant? You put on deodorant out of your own free will. Nobody has to smell your smelly pits, and everybody is going to be very thankful for that. So here, all of these three actions right here are going to be exhibiting these positive benefits or positive externalities because third parties, innocent bystanders, are going to be benefiting when you conduct these transactions. Inherently, with goods or actions that exhibit these positive externalities, we would like to produce a lot of these goods. So we would like to produce more of these goods, or do more of these actions. So we want more people to get the flu shot. We want more people to recycle. We want more people to wear deodorant. However, if we leave the markets alone, it tells us that the market is actually going to be producing too little of these goods. So without any market intervention at all, we would see the marketplace just producing too little of these goods. So market tends to produce too little of the good. Too little of the good. And there's an entire supply and demand analysis that we can build up with this positive and negative externalities, but we'll only do that later on in the semester. It's a little bit more of a micro-related issue. So here we'll just go ahead and note that these are the only things that we should know about externalities so far within this chapter. Suppose now that we go ahead and turn our attention to these external costs. So external cost. So if external benefits or these positive externalities generate positive benefits to third parties, external cost is just going to be the opposite of that. So when you conduct an action, you're actually going to be harming third parties. So what do you think would be an example of something that you could do right now that would be harming third parties? You do something out of your own free will, and someone's going to be hurt from that. So a really good example is maybe farting. So you, out of your own free will, decide to fart, and you give yourself some type of benefit by releasing the gas, but everyone else is going to have to smell it, and it's not going to be very, very good. So third parties, innocent bystanders, are going to be harmed by you doing this particular action. Not wearing deodorant, not recycling would be a really good example of external cost as well. We can also say, hey, maybe driving on Miami's roads. So driving on Miami's roads. So by you deciding to go drive on Miami's roads, how have you made someone else's life worse off? Well, we can talk about the congestion right here. So congestion, number one. So here, by you deciding to get on the roadway, so on the Palmetto, on the Dolphin, 595, 95, or the Turnpike, you've essentially made everybody else commute just a little bit longer. So therefore, you out of your own free will deciding to drive wherever you might go, to work, to school, you have made someone else's life worse off with congestion. You've also made someone else's life worse off with pollution. So pollution. You're driving your gas guzzler, and basically you're emitting emissions or CO2 into the atmosphere, and that is emitting some type of pollution. So you have pollution costs on third parties as well. And with these external costs, we do notice that, hey, without any government intervention at all, without any type of intervention, we tend to produce too much of these type of goods. So we tend to fart too much, we tend to drive too much on the roadways, so the market tends to produce too much of the good. Too much of the good. So here, as you can see with all of this, we do notice that with external costs, that you're going to be generating these costs that are imposed on third parties, and we are never going to reach our socially optimum point because we don't take into consideration the cost or benefits that we impose on other people. So here, that's market failure number 3. The final market failure that we can take a look at is where the government actually intervenes a lot, and that's where the government comes into play the most prominently with public goods. So with public goods, these are goods that you and I, consumers, would want on a regular basis, but no typical firm or corporation would actually provide them out into the marketplace because they have no incentive to do so. Essentially, if they provided out these public goods, they would not see any profits or revenues from putting them into the marketplace or into the economy. So because of this feature, this is where the government is going to go ahead and step in and provide these goods for us. And what are the features of public goods? We focus in on these two concepts: non-exclusive and non-rivalry. So non-excludability and non-rivalry, we need both of these characteristics and features in order to say that we have a public good. So non-exclusive tells us that once a public good is provided, no one can be excluded from consuming it. So here, once it's provided out into the free marketplace, everyone can use it. So you can use it, I can use it, the president can use it, a hobo can use it. So therefore, everyone can use it once it's provided. Non-rivalry tells us that one person's consumption does not diminish others' benefit. So essentially, everyone can use it at the same exact time, and we don't lose any satisfaction or utility from doing so. So here, non-excludability and non-rivalry are the two features that make up public goods. So what do you think would be a few examples of these public goods? Just keeping it in the back of your mind. So what are things that the government provides for us that typical firms and corporations will not? So in terms of public goods, we can say things like public television, public TV. So things like PBS, public broadcasting, PBS, where they provide shows like Arthur, Sesame Street. So with all of this, public goods, they do have the public television, they do have the features of non-excludability and non-rivalry. The government provides public television, everyone can watch it at the same exact time, and it's being provided so no one can be excluded from watching public television. We can also say the same in terms of public radio, so NPR. If you want to go ahead and listen to that, just a few FM frequencies as well, AM frequencies. This is all public goods provided by a lot of the government. We can say national defense would be a really good example. National defense. So we really wouldn't want Amazon, eBay, Walmart, or Target providing us with national defense. So the government comes into play. They say, hey, we know that we want to have a strong, protected country, so we're going to be providing this particular public good for you guys. Other examples could be public libraries, public parks, lighthouses. These are all things that the government is going to be providing for us. So the main feature that we have with public goods is this is where the government steps in. So here, the government is going to step in order to combat the issue of non-rivalry and non-excludability. So these are the 4 market failures that we go ahead and take a look at. We have public goods, we have these externalities, both on a positive and negative basis. We have the lack of competition, and we also have asymmetric information. All 4 sources of market failures, which could be a reason why we may not reach our socially optimal amount of goods or services being provided into the marketplace. In the next section, we're going to hone on the idea of the government stepping in just a little bit more when we take a look at price controls. With price ceilings and price floors, can the government actually be a cause of market failures themselves? So we'll go ahead and take a look at a few examples and applications of those price controls in the next lecture.